In these uncertain economic times, you've got to do whatever you can to save money. One of our biggest expenses can be our cars, especially when unexpected repair bills hit. Not anymore. If you own a vehicle with less than 130,000 miles, is less than 12 years old, has a warranty about to expire, or even no warranty at all, you could stop paying for car repairs. Roadside assistance, towing, and rental coverage are all included. Don't wait for the next repair. Make one free call right now to see if you qualify. If your vehicle is less than 12 years old, has less than 130,000 miles, even if it's out of warranty, paying for car repairs can become a thing of the past. Call us right now and get your car protected before your next repair bill hits. Get protection and no more repair bills. Call 800-696-1030. Again, 800-696-1030. That's 800-696-1030. 800-696-1030.
Wake up, America.
Can if they step up and do it, and that's what we need. We're in crisis right now, Lou. The only way that we're going to collapse is because of an internal threat. Government consists in taking as much money as possible from one class of citizens and giving it to another class.
You've reached the office of Dr. Randy Arrington. Please have a seat, and the doctor will be with you in just a moment.
Wake up, America. I think I got something to say to you. I say this every week. I love the United States of America, and I want you to love the United States of America too. Office hours with Dr. A is not a safe space, so enter at your own risk. You will be exposed to the truth, and I will endure the consequences. Again, rest assured, I will not try to put my brain into your head. I will, however, motivate you to think and to use the analytical part of your brain that very few people want to use because it requires actual effort, it requires actual work. Lou Esposito was on the line. She's my producer, my sidekick, and as you all know, I've given her the honorary tactical call sign, Wench, because she doesn't take crap from anybody. Lou, are you there?
I learned it from you.
Well, you deserve it. You were a little skeptical at first when I gave you that call sign. You know, sending me texts. I'm not sure about this. I had to explain it to you, and sometimes that's what it takes. You have to explain things to people so they get the proper perspective on things. We might talk about that today. Proper perspective.
Well, you actually picked a word or a moniker for me that could mean more than one thing. There's more than one different type of winch in the world, well, and I actually chose an avatar for Twitter that would make it really clear what type of winch you were calling me when you call me winch, and it's actually pretty popular.
Well, we're going to talk about perspective today, and I often will say things in an intellectual vein that makes you think of a couple different possibilities, a couple different contexts or perspectives. I do that on purpose. Why would I do that? Well, because I want to make you think. And you know me as a professor, I engaged in Platonic argument, and I let my students have latitude, but then I'll also back them into a corner where I know they can only come out in one direction, and that direction is always the truth, Lou.
Yeah. How's that go? How does that work out?
I have a technique. You should come and listen to one of my classes and see how the students feel about that. But we're going to continue with our talk about presidential paradoxes because we're right smack dab in the middle of a race campaign for nominating two people to be the final candidates to run for the highest office in the land. So we're talking about presidential paradoxes. We're going to get into, eventually, when we get this series done, we're going to get into the presidential spectacle, which I think people will like because not only is the presidency sometimes a spectacle, but the running for the campaign running itself can be a spectacle as well. But before we jump into that number 3 paradox, I want to talk about presidential power, which we've discussed before. I've written lots of articles on it. The president's power, Lou, his primary power is to persuade, influence, and bargain. It's not to command. When a president has to resort to commanding people, he, and one day she, is actually showing weakness. Commands only work in very, how should I put this, special circumstances. The essence of a president's persuasive task, Lou, is to convince men and women in government that what he wants of them is what they ought to want and do for their own sake, and their own authority. Remember, I teach my students this all the time, the American system of government is not one of shared powers, it's one of separated powers. The president is only one of several masters, if you will, of the government and of the bureaucracy. And even the White House staff, they have independent sources of power. People in various positions in our government cannot do much without persuading others to assist them, to help them as an asset. And this applies even to the chief executive. However, in our system of government, more people need favors from the president than from any other individual. And that gives the president a tremendous source of bargaining power.
With
the president's
everybody, right? With everybody, with lawmakers, with corporations, with international organizations, with everybody.
Well, he's got let's put it this way, he's got perks and benefits that he can bestow on people that do what he wants them to do. The other side of that coin is he also has punishments that he can inflict on people who do not do what he wants them to do. We heard that knucklehead Valerie Jarrett said the same thing when they got in the White House second term. We're going to reward those people that were on our side and punish our enemies. She said it with a lot of vitriol in her voice, as far as I'm concerned. Do you remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember.
All right, so let's talk about this. Before we get into paradox number 3, the president's resources include the bargaining power that comes with that position as our chief executive, public prestige, and professional reputation. So the president's professional reputation involves how should I put this? Others expect him to react. In that vein, isolated failures on the part of the chief executive are not a problem. But if the failures become a pattern, this will weaken our president. In addition to anticipating what the president wants, others in the governing system of the United States also have to assess how hard he will try to get what he wants. So tenacity is very important in the White House. If a president, Lou, cannot convince others that he will inevitably win this battle, at least he needs to convince them that it will be very costly to double-cross him. You cannot punish everyone, but you need to selectively punish your enemies, and again, like we mentioned earlier, reward your allies. So that's a source of power, number one, the president's professional reputation with those people inside the beltway, if you will. Public prestige deals with the president's popularity support, his popular support outside the White House. Go ahead. You want to ask me a question?
Yeah, I do. I want to ask you about punishing your enemies and rewarding your friends. We've seen that, and not just with the president, right? So we've seen it with the Speaker of the House in the last year.
Exactly.
Well, we've seen a lot of that.
A great example of the president of the United States rewarding his friends. The day they had that historic Supreme Court decision regarding gay marriage, homosexual marriage, what did the White House do that very night? They lit up the White House, the people's house there that we own, not him, in that array of rainbow colors. That is a reward to those people because they probably overwhelmingly supported him in his re-election bid. So he's giving legitimacy to them. Presidential legitimacy is huge in our system. Yes. So that's a perk that he has to bestow. Things that he can do to punish individuals. Oh my God, he's got the NSA, he's got the IRS going out there. He's got these little minions that go and they deny law-abiding groups of citizens their right to be, tax-free as a group, and he can, have his little minions hang that up for years at a time, like he has been, and that's a punishment for people that are not doing what he wants them to do. You see the two examples?
Yes.
And I think those are perfect examples.
Yeah, no, I think those are really, really wonderful examples.
All right, so we talked about the president's source of power. The first one, for this bargaining and influence, his reputation. And then it's public prestige, and that deals with the president's popular support outside of the Beltway. With reputation, people anticipate, if you will, the reactions of the chief executive. With prestige, they anticipate the reactions of the people in the electorate, the voters, the mass. Most politicians and bureaucrats do not watch poll numbers directly. They watch Congress. Prestige conveys leeway because low prestige encourages resistance on the part of the other lawmakers, the other movers and shakers of the 536 that we have in Washington that are actually elected. So there's the second one. And then the third one is the president must safeguard his power personally. No one else sees politics from the same vantage point, and thus no one else can do this for him. Everyone else has the institutional pulls of their position tinting their judgment, if you will. Yet nobody and nothing helps the president see what his vantage points are and see what his limitations are except for himself. So he can't really, in essence, this is what this is teaching. By the way, this comes from Richard Neustadt. Dr. Neustadt wrote the seminal work on presidential power. Whenever I teach a class in the presidency, whether it's just a basic class in the presidency or I talk about presidential power and homeland security, I have my students, sometimes I call them kids, my students read this book, Presidential Power and the Modern Presidents by Richard Neustadt, because it is the seminal work on presidential power. They have to read and understand what Dr. Neustadt taught us, and I think you should read it. You and your husband should read it sometime as well. But there you go. That's the power of the presidency boiled down into a nutshell. Now, we've been in this series. We're talking about the paradoxes, if you will, that associate with the presidency. And we've talked about two already. Let's get into number three paradox. Here it is. By the way, you can use this not only to make judgments, assessments, if you will, on the job the president is doing at the time, anytime you want to make that judgment, or you can use these right now to make judgments on these different individuals, of which there are 18 or 20, that are running for the two coveted positions of he's a nominee or she's a nominee from the GOP, and here's a nominee from the Democratic Party. You can use these as well to make judgments on those individuals. I think some of my colleagues out there have already made some judgments. I'm not sure about you, but you made a judgment. You don't like Donald Trump, neither does Miss Stacy, but that's okay.
I think it's fine to have ruled people out at this point. I think that's what people do in the beginning is they look at the entire field and it's just like skimming cream off of milk. It's like, okay, these are the ones that I like. So I'm going to separate the cream, and this is who I'm evaluating.
The first time I was on your show, in fact, I was your first guest when we started the new show back with the old title. I was the first guest, and Jared, you immediately wanted me to make an endorsement for president. I told you I can't do that. I can't do that right now.
Hey, just because I asked you doesn't mean that I really expected you to, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to ask you.
You were setting me up. Well, it's up to your. I know your tricks. I'm not.
I'm tricky. Yeah, I'm tricky.
But no, I can't. I told you I liked everybody on the right. Every candidate that was running on the GOP side for the nomination, I liked them compared to what's in there now or what could be in there in the coming years. But here's paradox number three when we're dealing with the presidential paradoxes of the American presidency. We as a people, we want a just, caring, compassionate, decent man or woman to be president. And yet the paradox of this is at the same time, we also admire a shrewd, a cunning chief executive. And in my notes, I wrote down Donald Trump. Is he a cunning and a shrewd chief executive? And we were talking offline. all these different paradoxes are dependent upon the perspective from which you are judging these paradoxes. I don't think a lot of people out there that like what Mr. Obama has done for 7 years think he is shrewd and cunning and he's getting the job done because he's got all these obstacles in his way that he has to jump over to overcome, and he's being that. But what is his goal? What is the final obstacle that he has to overcome to reach his goal, which, in my humble opinion, he is an Islamo-communist. Take a drink, ladies and gentlemen. He's trying to destroy the United States of America, the traditional American republic based on constitutional principles, collapse us, push us over the edge, and bring about a communist revolution, because that's who he is. I'm not calling him a name, wench, like I call you. I'm calling him what he is.
Well, I mean, really, if you think about it, you're kind of giving him proper respect, right? So if any good Islamo-communist would want an Islamo-communist revolution, so you're really just kind of giving him proper respect there. I'm recognizing what you are, and I'm saying that if you're going to be one of those, you're a doggone good one.
All right, so it depends. You might think, from whatever perspective you're judging him on, that Mr. Obama is caring, decent, just, compassionate. Another side of that coin would be a different individual from a different perspective would say, no, he's a shrewd, cunning, he's a traitor. A lot of people say that. I would. So on occasions that warranted, this paradox number 3, we even want a manipulative, ruthless chief executive. And that's where my notes I put Barack Obama. He might be that ruthless, manipulative president that a lot of people want and other people loathe. We don't need that based on what he's trying to do to the country. There's always a fine line between boldness and recklessness.
Well, and from a communications perspective, from a perception and especially public perception perspective, if that's, if he really is shrewd and cunning, he does an excellent job of coming off as calm and fatherly.
Yeah. Well, I can see right through it. I know what his goals are. I know what his life is. I know how he's been trained. Yeah. Who his associates are. The acorn doesn't fall from the tree. And this guy is not only a tree. He's planted another tree, a whole forest, and he's building himself up. He's trying to destroy the United States of America. I hope JD and Stacey hear that because they might like that.
Yeah, no, I think maybe they've heard you say that before. But
again, let me go back. There's always a fine line between boldness and recklessness, between strong self-confidence and naked hubris, between dogged determination and stubborn pig-headedness. We as a people admire modesty, humility, and a sense of proportion. But you know what, wench? All of our great leaders have been vain and crafty. That's why I like hanging out with you on the radio and in events we go to, and JD and Stacey, because you guys, I think, recognize that Dr. Arrington has the potential to run off the edge of that arrogant intellectualism, and you always make sure that I keep one foot firmly planted in humility. That's why I like to hang around you guys. You agree with that?
Yeah, I think we do that for each other, actually. But yes, that it is good to hang out with people that keep you grounded.
Is that what at the Red State gathering when she pinched my face together that she was?
Isn't that what she told you?
Humility?
Isn't that what you told you? She told you it was endearing.
I will never forget that. I'll probably mention that till the day I die, and she made sure I was humble. Now, here we go. Would-be presidents. We're going through a campaign right now, so we got to judge these guys. We got to make informed judgments. You know what, people? Don't just listen to the activists like most of us want to do. We don't want, I opened the show with that we do not want to use the analytical part of our brain because that requires work. And you know what? That's what we have to do. That's what I encourage my students in the university setting to do all the time. Don't let others do the work for you. I tell them all the time, if you hear something come out of Dr. Arrington's mouth, don't believe it right off the bat. Go do the research yourself. Find out if I'm telling you the truth or if I'm lying to you. And sometimes I would tell them all the time, I'm not going to purposely, lead you astray, but I might say some things, one, to see if you're listening to the lecture, and two, to see if you've got the guts to challenge me. And I would say things like, Abraham Lincoln, the great man, president that he was, the fourth president of the United States that he was, and then I pause to see if anybody will challenge me. And some do and some don't. But I do that on purpose just to see if they're listening and if they'll challenge me. But
some people don't challenge no matter how much they're listening. You about ready to give your voice a break? And
it takes them about, 3 lectures before they realize I'm one of the good guys. And they can trust me, and they know that I allow them to speak their mind, and I'm not going to cut them off like that knucklehead O'Reilly does. I'm going to let you speak, and then we'll incorporate that into the discussion and let others engage you in intellectual banter. That's where they learn, Lou. When they go to college, it's not about me putting my brain into their head like most of my liberal colleagues wanted to do. It's about the professor motivating you to use the rational thought process. To engage in reasoned, analytical thought and come to your own conclusion. You might come to a different conclusion than me, but that's okay. So I always encourage them, even if I tell you something, go find out if I'm telling you the truth. So,
I challenge you, but you ready you want to take a quick break and we'll come back with number 4?
Geez, I was just getting going here. Yeah, okay, we'll take a break. Yes, ma'am.
All right, we're gonna take a quick break right here, and we'll come back, and I think we'll pick up with that was still 3, and
we got one more thing that we'll go into 4.
All right, real quick, 10 seconds.
Okay.
Oh, you got one more thing when we come back from break, and we'll go into 4.
Oh yeah.
Sounds good. All right, we'll be right back.
K98 Talk is expanding its lineup for 2015. This means we are expanding our advertising base. Whether you're a startup trying to push through to the next level or an established business trying to supplement your advertising budget, web-based advertising is a solid investment. Thanks to Talk's newest partnership with TuneIn Radio and instant access to our sister station, K98 FM, we give you worldwide access at a reasonable cost. Interested parties should email us at sales@k98fm.com.
Wondering why you're up early with us on a Sunday morning making a cocktail? News lately got you drinking? Hungover from the mainstream media by Sunday? We are, and we got you covered.
We sure do. We got your hangover cure for those weekly news blues. So sit back, top off your mimosa, and add some Baileys to that coffee.
Take a match to your copy of the New York Times. Light, funny, and oh yeah, news with booze.
And a lot of laughter.
Welcome to Bloody Marys and Broadsheets.
Abolish the IRS. Take all 125,000 IRS agents and put them on our southern border.
That's us. That's right. Gotta love this American ride. Both ends of the ozone burning. Funny how the world keeps turning. Look, Mom, no hands. I love this American ride. Gotta love this American ride.
All right, we're back and talk about a guy that might have the all the pieces to be president. What you think?
Well, would-be presidents, what do they have to do? Simultaneously, they have to win our trust. Oh my gosh, trust is so important. And of course, we know character in the person is a critical component of whether we're going to trust them or not. But they have to simultaneously win our trust. How do they do that? Through displays of integrity, while possessing the calculation, the pragmatism, and the single-mindedness of a jungle fighter. So those two things are a paradox. And these guys that are running for president, that's exactly what they have to do every day until we pick one of them. Paradox number 4 in the presidency: we the people admire, how do I put this, the above politics, the bipartisan, the nonpartisan approach. And yet, you know what, Lou? The presidency is perhaps the most political office in the American system of government, which, again, often requires a politician that's creative and is an entrepreneurial master, if you will. As a public, and this I think is happening more and more, we yearn for a statesman. Mark Levin writes books all the time. He talks about statesmen. We yearn for a statesman in the White House, for another George Washington. And again, I mentioned this earlier on in our series here on the radio show, Office Hours with Dr. Ray, that George Washington despised political parties. Go back and read his very short address where he left office. He warned the nation about the dangers of what they called factions back then. Factions today are nothing more than political parties. Washington was a statesman. Washington could have been president for life, but he was smart enough to realize, no, that's not the way it works. 2 terms, I'm gone. Let somebody else come in there. Presidential politics
Do you think it matters? Can I ask you something about Washington?
You can ask me anything, yeah.
Yeah, do you think it matters that he had led the army that fought the war against tyranny, despotism, that kind of rule? He was pretty adamant about America not having a king. Do you think that passion came from leading the army?
I think it did, but it also came from him being very book learned, very knowledgeable, intellectual about society, about human interaction, complex human relations, and understanding government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem, and they can be a huge problem.
You're quoting my favorite president.
Who would that be, Clinton?
Well, my favorite modern president. Yeah, exactly. That was a Reagan quote, and you know it.
Yes, one of mine too, Ronnie. But he was a statesman, and he understood. Being the commanding general, fighting against King George, the third style of tyranny, he couldn't go right into being a despot, which is what he would have ended up being. So he was smart enough to know that. Presidential politics demands that a chief executive be a gifted broker of politics, a gifted political broker. After all, he is the party leader. It's not Debbie Wasserman Schultz, whatever her name is. She's not really the party leader. It's Barack Obama. He is the party leader, but he is also the nation's only nationally elected representative officer who is supposed to represent all the people. So here's the paradox. We ask them to simultaneously be above politics in their behavior, in their demeanor, and in their policy setting, and yet be highly political as well. And that's a huge paradox, and we have to understand that when we're judging the president's credibility, his trustworthiness, and his job that he's currently doing as president. We do those polls, rank the presidents or how's the president doing. Now, paradox 5, we as a people want a chief executive who can be a unifier, who can unify the diverse amount of people and interests that we have amongst the 330 million citizens and non-citizens in the United States of America. We want a unifier. However, the job requires that he, on occasion, must take firm stands and make very unpopular, very controversial decisions. And those types of decisions, Lou, necessarily divide and upset us. So we want a unifier, but we also want a divider when the time is appropriate for that. I think right now what we have in the White House, and I'm not going to say that word because I don't want anybody to drink too much, we don't have a unifier in the White House. We have a guy that promised that. He said all the right things. Whoever was his team told him what to say. It sounded great, but we had a lot of people that knew differently. And,
thus, beware of things that sound great.
Well, yeah, we don't want great oratory. Cicero often lamented that great oratory. He wondered if great oratory was a national treasure or something to really be worried about because of the potential for demagoguery, and that seems to be a problem, mostly on the left in our political continuum. But we can have demagogues on the right as well.
Oh, we certainly do. Yeah, we certainly do, and we see it more during the primary season, I think, and I think it's not as much the norm.
Well, normally in a primary, you get two different elections. I always tell people when I teach about the presidency, the most important election is not the general election, people. It's not. It's the primary, because the primary sets the agenda, and you've got to pick the right guy there. Otherwise, you're in a lot of trouble. And usually, I think this year seems to be a different perspective on this because of what's going on in the world and at home, the political context. Usually, all the candidates go to the extremes during the primary, and then when they go to the center for the general election. I think you're going to find a very extreme set of candidates on the left and the right during the primary, and I think they're going to stay there when they come into the general election next September, October, November. I think they're going to stay on the outsides of the continuum.
Yeah, I think people are missing just how diverse the field really is for the GOP, but I think it's really interesting, and I think people are missing it. There's so much diversity in the GOP field, and it's so little on the other side, but it's vast.
Well, you know what? Most of us in the masses. I like that word. I consider myself one of the
I don't.
People in the mass. Most of us, we don't have time to be activists like some of the other people do. We just don't have time. We're too busy leading our lives, taking care of our families, to go and do our job and that sort of thing. So that's why most of us rely on those activists. Most of us will rely on people to tell us what to do. Who should I vote for? Well, I'll have my pastor tell me, or I'll have this particular person at work who I look up to and think they know a lot about politics. I'll have them tell me who to vote for. And that's the absolute wrong thing to do, especially during an election, which right now, people, if you're listening out there, this election that's coming up is the most important election in your lifetime. I don't care how old you are. It is the most important election, because if we put a lefty in there, like Mrs. Clinton, or the other knucklehead, what's his name, the guy from Vermont, or where's he from?
Bernie Sanders, yeah, I think it's Vermont or New Hampshire.
We are in deep trouble. And I've said this before, I may write an article about this coming up, but we have great potential to balkanize, to break up into 3 or 4 different separate nations. I know you don't want to hear that, but it might actually occur. And if we did do that, and we had a conservative United States of America, first thing I'd do is I'd probably get involved in politics on the elected or appointed level. But I'd say the first thing we do is put up huge walls all around whichever 18 or 20 states we get.
But let's put it in perspective. That's a political scientist's kind of mathematical perspective on it. It's a mathematical possibility.
You want me to give you a mathematical possibility? What's the chances? What's the odds?
No, I don't actually. I don't, only because I don't want to know.
Yeah. Well, I personally believe, and I put this out on Twitter all the time when I'm not fending off my Twitter trolls and your JD and Rick Robinson and Miss Stacy's Twitter trolls. Every now and then I get to do that when I have time.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time on Twitter, no, the United States, the true conservative American patriots, will rise up, protect, defend, and preserve traditional American liberty and our constitutional republic. We will. We're not going to let this thing fall. And I'm sorry if you're not on that side. If you're in Black Lives Matters, or you're a Muslim, you're a communist, a cultural Marxist, which we'll talk about in a few weeks. We'll get back into that, Lou. I'm sorry. You are going to lose, people. We will fight you tooth and nail, and guess what? We will win.
And that's the truth.
It is the truth. I'm telling you that.
No,
We got patriots. And Sam Adams said this. He said, if ever we get people that are vain and all out for themselves in there, and they weren't really looking at Marxism yet, because it hadn't been invented by Karl Marx until the 1850s, if ever that happens, we get somebody in the White House or in these high levels of office, Sam Adams says the true American patriots are going to be relied upon to save this country. And those guys were brilliant. Most of them were self-taught.
He's another one of my favorites. Brilliant. Yes. Yeah.
You got a lot of favorites. Washington, Reagan, Sam
Thomas
Adams,
Paine,
Locke,
John Locke, Thomas Paine.
Dr. A.
Yes, Dr. A. True patriot.
I wonder if I'm one of Miss Stacy's favorites. I know JD likes me, but
she'd never admit it if you are.
Oh, women. You know what? Nobody can figure out women. I just can't do it. I got a role in this.
And you never will.
And you never will. I think God did to us on purpose. But I got a small role as one of the party adults in this Nutcracker, which is coming up. We're in rehearsals right now. I can't figure women out. I was told I grew up with some of these little girls that are now in the primary roles. They're in the senior company. They were 8 or 9 years old when I first met them. So now they're 16, and I was told I can't treat them like they were 9 or 10 anymore. Chase them around and tease with them. I can't do that because they're turning into young women. So here's the advice I was given by one of their moms. Ignore them, Randy. Ignore them, and they'll come to you. And you know what? She's right. I hate it when she's right. Ignore them. Don't pay any attention to them. They'll come to you. See,
she's a good woman. Always, yeah. She's a good woman. Always listen to her. She sounds very smart. She's
very intelligent. I'll have to listen to her. She is a Texan too. So, by the way, I'm an honorary Texan. She doesn't like hearing that, but I've lived in more cities in Texas than her and her whole family combined.
Well, I want a passport. Anyway. Moving on. That was back to your previous topic.
A president, a chief executive of the United States should be a national unifier. What's the better way to put it? A harmonizer. While at the same time, the job requires priority setting and advocacy leadership. These tasks are opposites, hence the word paradox. They're opposites.
Yeah.
Indeed, they must pull us together as they build their coalitions, their governing coalitions, and as they build consensus to help them achieve what they have set as the goals. But at the same time, they must exercise creative leadership. And this can't help but offend certain interests in the nation, certain factions in the nation. We ask our chief executive to protect public interests, and yet, at the same time, the paradox is this. We want them also to advocate for private issues as well. And those are paradoxes. So remember that, people, when you're judging these guys or when you're looking at a candidate that you want to throw your support and endorsement behind this campaign season. Paradox 6 in the presidency, we expect our chief executives to provide creative, visionary, bold, innovative, programmatic leadership. But you know what, Wench? At the same time, we want them to respond programmatically, publicly, policy-wise, to the will of public opinion majorities. When I was at UCLA, I was taught that the United States is not majority rules. Dr. Brody taught me this. We are minorities rule.
Yes.
Now, I don't mean by whatever is the minority at the time, whether that's a person of color or homosexuals or whatever. I'm not saying that, but we're minorities rule in the sense that these small cliques, these different minorities can band together and get these things accomplished against the will of the majority.
And
Tocqueville taught us in Democracy in America to worry about the tyranny of the majority. Dr. Brody taught me we got to worry about the tyranny of the minorities.
Well, and you tease me about about loving John Locke the way that I do. That's yet another thing that he warned us about. It's not the only thing he warned us about.
He warned us about a lot of stuff. He was brilliant.
Yes.
He and Montesquieu were basically what the founding fathers used to create Madison and those guys to create the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
And you tease me about not liking Donald Trump, and John Locke is one of the reasons that I don't like Donald Trump, and it's eminent domain, and you know that.
Now I'm perplexed because I was under the impression that you and Miss Stacy just love Donald Trump. I better pay more attention to Twitter because I thought you guys were almost endorsing him.
I don't. Yeah, right. Exactly.
All right, well.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't dislike him as a man. And I'm not a hater or a basher or anything like that. But I don't like him for president. And eminent domain is the reason. And John Locke is the reason that I'm so against eminent domain. Property rights are important.
Well, Dr. A is close to making an endorsement, if that would mean to anybody, the 2-3 listeners we have out there. But I'm close to making an endorsement. I may wait until after Christmas. We get into the New Hampshire primary and that sort of stuff. But I'm starting to line up, listening to what these guys are saying, and liking certain ones and disliking other principles that are said. So we'll come up with a endorsement here soon. But here's the deal.
Well, I'm starting to pull on who it's going to be. I think I know.
All right. Well, we expect presidents to lead and to follow and to exercise democratic leadership, which we talked about last week. We want principled leadership. But we also want flexible, adaptive men and women to lead us. It's almost like as if we're saying, lead us, but also listen to us. Remember, we can only be led where we want to go as a people. We're not like dogs chained up. We can only be led where we want to go. We'll resist going in directions we don't want to go. We want presidents with creative plans who will also respond to facts and be able to improvise according to varying historical context or political context. Remember what I taught you last week? I teach all my students this. When somebody gets up and says something in the political arena, think to yourself, why would he or she say that? What's the political context from which that person is saying that? What's the historical context that is motivating them to say that? Why you don't like Donald Trump? You say he's bad on eminent domain. He's this, that, and the other. Why would he be saying what he's saying now? Why did he change his opinion? I said last week that I thought Marco Rubio was a slick punk in a three-piece suit. You didn't like that. Miss Stacy didn't like that. I'm telling you right now, I can see through him. And I know what he did when he was with the Gang of Eight. I know what he really wants to do.
And he's not my favorite anyway.
Right now.
He's not. Huh? He's not even. He's not in my top 3. So I'm really not that worried about it, Doc.
He's saying things out of political expediency, if you want to call it that, historical context. I'd be very wary of throwing my support behind Marco Rubio. Remember, like it says earlier, most people can only be led where they want to go. Strong leadership can provide a vision that empowers all of us as a nation, both collectively and individually, to rise above the routine and to make real contributions as citizens to our common purpose. Remember I talked this a couple weeks ago. Too much personal success means you have failed as a leader. Yes, you're going to have personal success, but you got to remember, your job as a leader is to be like Coach John Wooden. I think, and I know this, when I teach my Air Force guys get ready to go to war, I know, based on the type of leader that I am, I can get more out of those students than they even thought they were capable of providing themselves. That's what Coach Wooden did at UCLA. Ask Bill Walton, Keith Wilkes, Marcus Johnson, some of these guys that played for him, Dave Myers. They gave more because of the way he influenced them and coached them. That's what a leader's supposed to do. We don't have that in the White House right now. We really don't. We've got a divider in the White House. Somebody that is, again, trying to foment revolution and split us all up into these warring factions, which make the country decay. We engage in moral decay, which means then we have economic decay, then we have societal decay, and then we have basically collapse of the Union. We're pushed over the edge. That's going to happen if we don't stop it right now. True American patriots, stand up. I am ready right now. Dr. A is ready right now to stand up with courage and fight these people tooth and nail. Who among you will stand up with me, shoulder to shoulder, and fight what's happening to our country right now. I know you will, Lou.
Winch will.
Winch will fight. I want to be on the right side, whichever side she's on.
And all I will say is 3.
Okay. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's my radio answer. 3.
Americans, as a whole, rebel against too much of this type of hierarchical leadership. We emphatically resist being led too far in any one direction. And we learned that, if you do any study, we learned that from Washington, his example, which we talked about earlier. We do expect innovative leadership, vigorous leadership when crisis occurs. Remember after 9/11, all of those warring factions inside of Capitol Hill came to the steps in front of the rotunda and arm in arm, hand in hand, sang, God bless America, and then a week later they were all warring again. That happens all the time. So we expect this vigorous, innovative leadership when crisis occurs, but you know what? Once the crisis is subsided, we don't want or need them around anymore. That's the basic example of our first show on this series, Dr. A, sheep, wolves, and sheepdogs. Once the wolf has been successfully destroyed by the sheepdogs, the sheep go back to being those, knucklehead, innocent sheep, and they don't want the sheepdogs because we got fangs. We look an awful lot like those wolves. Leadership, again, Lou, requires radiating hope, giving great expectations and influence, but it also must be grounded in reality. Americans tend to have very strong opinions, wench, but guess what? They don't last too long. The term I use for this is not about our eyes, it's about our minds. Most of us are myopic. We have strong opinions, but they go away very quickly. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. Good thing and a bad thing. I'm ready to go into Paradox 7 unless you want to take a break.
Yeah, let's let you rest your voice for a minute, and we will be right back.
Okie dokie.
Well, yeah, we'll be right back in a second. So you're going to come back with 7?
I'll come back gloriously and triumphantly to Paradox 7.
All right, we'll be right back.
K98Talk.com, a leader in internet radio. So grab your seatbelts and take the ride of your life on K98Talk.com.
This is JD.
And this is Stacy.
Join us Tuesday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern, for Game On. Remember,
Lock up the children and the old folks.
Game On, the home of libertative conservatism.
Where no one is safe, no one is spared, not even the hosts.
Oh, that was supposed to be a spin cycle. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We love you anyway. Right round, baby.
Self-monitoring
right
Ebola
round.
radio strikes again.
Anyway.
Anybody see the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? Where's the host monkey? For God's sake, I need an antidote. Just do your rant. Let's pop out of the segment.
Has to do with
Find us on Twitter at JD and Stacy.
You're listening to K98Talk.com. The internet will never be the same. You're listening to K98Talk.com.
Whoa! Good God, y'all. What is it good for? Absolutely.
Okay, we're back.
Did you do that for me? Did you play Edwin Starr War just for me?
Yes, I play that break just for
fine.
you. Yeah, I play that break just for you.
That and Rod Stewart's Maggie May, which we opened the show with. I love that, yeah.
Yeah, actually, and those are a hat tip to Jared, because those are a couple of his breaks that he let us borrow.
I knew I liked Jared.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't like John McCain, and I love John as a brother, a naval aviation brother, but I don't like him as a politician.
Yeah, exactly. You don't like him as a politician either.
No,
and
he needs to go.
I don't judge him as a man.
I tell him all the time he needs to resign. Go
Right.
out
I know
to pasture.
politicians do things for political reasons. I don't judge him as a man,
Yeah.
and whatever.
We were talking earlier about crisis and how the president reacts during crisis. You know what? We opened the show with this. America's in crisis right now, and it's only been building since Mr. Obama's been in office. What happened in Paris just I think it was 2 days ago, right after Mr. Obama on national TV, ABC said that he had ISIS, I think he calls them ISIL, contained, and then they go and they have this heinous terrorist attack in 3 or 4 different locations, kill 130 or 40 people and wound 600 or 800. That was a coordinated act of war. We are at war, people. We're not at war against, like Mrs. Clinton said last night on the Democratic primary, the Democratic debate. She said, we're not at war against Islam. We're at war against radical extremism. No, we're not. Violent extremism. We're at war against Islam. And I tell you all the time, Islam is not a religion. It is not a religion. Islam is this brutal, totalitarian political ideology of total, absolute control over human behavior and thought. It's masquerading as a religion. I say it is basically from Satan himself. They're emissaries of Satan, as I believe Muhammad was. I'm sorry if you don't like that, but I'm telling you the truth. And you got to be very careful. A lot of these people, just because they have a lot of friends that are Muslim, they're very nice, people are gentle people. Well, a lot of people in Germany in 1929 through 1930, whatever, when Hitler took over, were nice and gentle people, but they did not prevent Hitler from taking over and then killing 6 million innocent people, Jewish people. There's probably a lot of nice people in China, too, when Mao Zedong killed 100 million. And 60 million were killed by your buddy Stalin there in Russia.
Yeah, my buddy Stalin. There are always nice people that don't or can't or won't.
We as Americans want and need powerful, self-confident presidential leadership. Again, but the paradox is we are inherently suspicious of leaders who view themselves as above criticism or as infallible. I should have penciled in my notes right there. That's Barack Hussein Obama. He believes he's above criticism. He's infallible. There couldn't be a more fallible man on the planet from the perspective of viewing him as a constitutional Republican, somebody that believes in the principles of the United States of America. He doesn't believe in that. He hates America. Hates America. Did you hear me, people? That's exactly who this man is. We cherish, at least I do, our checks and balances system and the separation of power principle. I call it shared power. In theory, we oppose the concentration of power. We dislike secrecy. This is supposed to be the most transparent administration ever. The exact opposite has been the truth. The empirical reality of this presidency for 7 years has been it's the most secretive, hateful presidential administration ever. They spy on their own citizens, and they have no remorse. We resent depending on any one person to provide all of our leadership. That's why we have separated and shared powers. And yet, as Americans, at least on occasion, we also do indeed yearn for aggressive presidents who are dynamic in their behavior. We often tend to celebrate gutsy chief executives. I thought Ronald Reagan was a gutsy cowboy chief executive. I loved that guy.
Yeah.
These guys tend to manipulate and push Congress in the legislative arena. But here's the difference between Reagan and even Nixon, who at times was gutsy and manipulative, if you want to call it, pushing Congress. They still believed in the Constitution. They were not violating the laws of the land like Mr. Obama does every single day, people. We perceive great presidents to be those who have stretched their legal authority and dominated other branches of government. Teddy Roosevelt did that. A lot of people think he was a great president. His cousin Franklin Roosevelt did that. Lincoln did that. He mined the southern harbors. He suspended the writ of habeas corpus. They say he stuffed the ballot box to get reelected. All of his alleged constitutional violations after the fact received Supreme Court endorsement. And a lot of people view Lincoln as one of the great presidents because of the way he kept the nation together. Whatever might have been the Founding Fathers' intentions for our 3 branches of government, by the way, I teach there's 5 branches of government. We might get into that later on in this series, All Stars with Dr. A. But whatever their intention was for the 3 branches, a majority of so-called scholars believe that most of the time, especially in crisis, our system of government works best when our chief executive is strong And when we have a self-confident, assertive chief executive, self-confident, assertive chief executive, I'm going to give a few names here. I want you to judge whether they are self-confident, assertive. Ronald Reagan.
Definitely.
Jimmy Carter.
No, not really.
Barack Hussein Obama.
Definitely.
Trump, potentially.
Yeah, he
I'm
would.
laughing.
Yes.
I gotta throw that in for you and
I have to be honest. Yes, he would be.
Self-confident and assertive.
That's not enough, but yeah, he would be.
No, well, and I understand what your trepidation is. I can read your body language, 800 miles away. There is, of course, a fine line between self-confidence, which is usually viewed as a positive characteristic or quality, and arrogance, which can indeed be an obstacle to effective leadership. Paradox number 8, if we have time, what it takes to become president may not be what it takes to actually be president, to govern the nation effectively. To win the presidency, to win a presidential election, it takes many, many things. Ambition, money, years of hard work, money, masterful public relations strategies, more money, as well as some luck. It requires the formation of an electoral coalition. To govern in our democratic constitutional republic requires much more. It requires the formation of a governing coalition. And again, to quote Neustadt, the ability to bargain and compromise. Although important in our political process, television has mixed and confusing effects for the presidency. I'll talk about that more when we get into the presidential spectacle. We'll do that over a couple shows.
Yeah, that'll be great. Yeah, you got about a minute and wrap
All
it
right.
up.
False on TV, false or exaggerated, and looking good often becomes more important than doing well. Look good or die trying is the mantra. If we got 1 minute left, is that what you're saying?
Yep, you got a minute.
To become president takes a determined person, a master fundraiser, a person who is dynamic, charming on television, and a little bit hazy on the issues. Thus, what it takes to become president may be different from what it takes to actually be president. Now, if we're going to sign off, I want to tell you this. Let freedom ring. God help us. And again, Dr. A will always, always, always speak the truth and then endure the consequences. I want to always bring you into Office Hours of Dr. A. It's not a safe space, so you enter at your own risk, but you will be exposed to the truth, whether you like it or not, and then I will endure those consequences.
It's not a safe space.
Not a safe space.
It's not a safe space, but
What's
that's
that all
okay.
about? A safe space? Are you kidding me? Safe space. Oh my God.
I know,
All right.
exactly. But we don't have any trigger warnings on this show because we just don't. The whole show is a trigger warning. There you go. So we'll be right here next week on K98 Talk at 3 p.m. again, I think. Could be moving to noon right after JD and Stacy, so stay tuned for that.
Well, we'll wrap up next week with the presidential paradox. There's only a couple more.
Yeah.
And then maybe we'll tease or get into the presidential spectacle.
Yeah.
If we have time, we'll do that. Okay.
That's going to be a fun one. And you can catch me Thursday nights here on K98 Talk at 8 p.m. for Whom the Bell Tolls. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.
See y'all.
Wake up, Maggie, I think I got something to say. It's late September.
When our water heater broke down last month, it was a nightmare. It took 5 hours for the plumber to show up, and he charged us a couple of $100 just to come out. And then it cost another $1,800 to put in the new water heater. By the time it was all said and done, I felt like I'd been taken. But what else could I do?
The smartest thing you can do is get a home warranty from American Residential Warranty. Their home warranties pay to repair or replace all your major appliances when they break, and they will break, and at the worst possible time. Call American Residential Warranty right now for free information on home warranties starting at just pennies a day. Don't wait for your refrigerator to stop running or your ceiling fans to stop turning. Call American Residential Warranty right now. Ask how you can save up to 50% on washer and dryer coverage. Just call 1-800-513-6154. That's 1-800-513-6154. Again, 1-800-513-6154. Call now.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.